So, Ben, Arsenal have taken the top spot following their 2-0 victory and, of course, Liverpool's 2-1 loss to Chelsea. What does Arsenal do to keep this momentum going? And can we kind of count Liverpool out just yet?
No, not at all. Liverpool won't be panicking because they were only seconds away from being joint top, although Arsenal would have had the goal difference in their favour had that materialised. But Liverpool have just had a little blip, and the international break is a time for them to contemplate. And even though players are going away, I think Arne Slot will actually be quite glad to have the October international break because he can start to work on the chemistry. How can he get the best out of Florian Wirtz? Are Isak and Ekitike going to coexist together? If not, is it Isak and Salah that maybe need to do a little bit of relationship building? So, of course, a lot of people felt like Liverpool had strengthened, and that's true on paper. But when you have a window of that magnitude where you bring in signings in lots of different areas, and let's not forget Jeremy Frimpong was out for a little bit with an injury as well. Alisson out, so Mamadashvili now is getting his first game time a bit earlier than expected. It can take time to build a little bit of chemistry. So Liverpool, I think, will be relatively content with where they are because, as I said before, had they drawn 1-1, they would be joint top heading into the international break. But for Arsenal, it's the opposite. They also had a lot of business done, and Andrea Berta had a fantastic window in terms of incomings, outgoings, and some contract extensions as well. And this is what we've been expecting from Arsenal for quite some time, a project that's not about patience and building, but winning now. And even when they're not at their best, they're picking up victories. And when they are, they look very much unstoppable. So the win against West Ham was obviously expected, and the same can be said for Olympiacos, but it's 4 goals and 2 clean sheets. They battled and made a real statement, winning at St James's Park, which is not easy. They didn't lose to Manchester City, and the manner of how they equalised from Gabriel Martinelli 3 minutes into added time is also a big boost as well. So obviously from Arsenal's point of view, very content, but they will be wary because as the season goes along, you sense that Liverpool will still just get better and better.
Absolutely, but Liverpool's Salah is obviously taking a lot of heat at the moment. Like, what do you think is really going on with him, or has he lost form at all?
Well, I think from Liverpool's point of view, there's just been a lot of change and unfortunately tragedy as well. And it can take its toll on different players in different ways. So from Mo Salah's point of view, he's been Mr. Liverpool. He's been extremely consistent. He was scoring goals for fun last season. But you've had the whole mental toll of the contract extension, which dragged into April, a difficult summer for everybody connected at Liverpool Football Club. And of course, our thoughts remain with the families of Diego Jota and Andre Silva. And then straight into a new season with a new striker and different partnerships. And I think the way Arne Slot wants Mo Salah to play will be a little bit different, with Florian Wirtz given freedom through the centre, Alexander Isak being the focal point, and maybe Salah has had to stay a little bit wider. But you can see in mini episodes in games as well that Salah and others, whether it's perhaps Salah passing to Isak, or I noted one against Chelsea where Wirtz put a through ball forwards, and again other attacking players weren't on the same page. So we're starting to see Liverpool's potential, and it's obviously always been there on paper after this incredible summer. But you don't win games on paper, you don't win windows, you win football matches. And for Mo Salah, my sense is just that as a senior player at the football club, he has to realign a little bit because his role has changed. And once he finds a way of coexisting with Isak in particular, I think he'll really get going. For me, Salah actually looks better when Ekitike leads the line because he's a more fluid player that can drop into other areas and allow Salah to get furthest forwards in central areas. With Isak, it's a different kind of dynamic, and I think it's one that both players are still getting used to.
Right, so between Arsenal then and Liverpool, who do you see taking the title? I know we're really early in the season, but just as we're heading into international break, where do you think we're going to end up at the end of the season?
I think what we've seen from the first games is it's going to be very tight, which I know sounds like I'm sitting on the fence, but it's fascinating because Liverpool are the defending champions, but there's been a lot of change and big spending, and Arsenal under Andrea Berta are a win-now project. So there's almost pressure on both because Arsenal need to show a return at this stage of their project. And from Liverpool's perspective, they're trying to consolidate and kick on, because if they do move backwards in the league or in cup competitions, then people will naturally point to the spend and say, why are they not better than they were last season when they won the Premier League? I think Arsenal will be quite confident because they have that stability, but I still sense that Liverpool are the favourites for the Premier League title, and naturally when they play each other, that is going to be defining. And I think it's one of those Premier League seasons where 7 games in we can't really predict, other than at the moment the league table doesn't lie, and it wouldn't surprise me if we head into, let's call it, game 38 and there's a point between Arsenal and Liverpool and they're fighting it out on the final game of the season. So predictions at this stage are a little bit redundant, but what I would say is my personal view is Liverpool remain favourites for the Premier League title, simply because they've not actually been at their best and they're only 1 point off the top. And that's a bit of a backhanded compliment, because they're only going to get better, in my opinion. And if they get going, Liverpool are going to be tough to stop.
Kind of what we all want as fans anyway. Like, you don't want... Like, what happened for Liverpool was great last season, but you don't want it to be won that early. You want it to kind of go down to the wire a bit more. And I think it's good to have this kind of, you know, nail-biting competition so early on, because you kind of hope that it keeps going all the way to the end. Right, so let's talk about Chelsea now. Their manager, Enzo Maresca's red card has caused quite a stir among the fans, and even our own talkSPORT talent have had their say on it as well. So he ran down the touchline in the celebration for that goal, which triggered his second yellow. So we got no post-match from him, and we believe that it's going to be a 1-game ban. What do you think? Do you think that's a fair red? And what does this kind of do to him?
So Enzo Maresca got sent off, and of course it was for 2 yellow cards, so the officials would probably argue that they've got no choice. It feels a little bit Scrooge-like to punish a manager for celebrating a last-minute winner in the dying seconds of a game against the defending Premier League champions, when an 18-year-old sensation in Esteval Willian scores the winner. If the manager can't celebrate that, then what can he celebrate? And I'm sure that will be Enzo Maresca's perspective. So people are going to make something of the fact that Chelsea, including that sending off, have had 4 red cards in their last 5 games. But actually, I think this helps Enzo Maresca, despite the touchline ban, because it's given him an iconic moment and a bond with the Chelsea fan base. And essentially, what we've heard from Maresca, especially in the build-up to Jose Mourinho returning to Stamford Bridge, is that the fans are singing sometimes when Chelsea play well, "We've got our Chelsea back," but they're not always chanting his name. And it was definitely obvious in the first few minutes of that game against Benfica that the fans were singing, as you'd expect, I suppose, because he was back at the Bridge, the name of Jose Mourinho and not that of Enzo Maresca. So there's still some work to be done for Maresca to really build that status between himself and the fan base and forge that bond, even though Chelsea ended up qualifying for the Champions League and winning 2 trophies last season. So sometimes when the manager gets in trouble and really wears their heart on their sleeve, it actually cements them in the fan base's mind as a manager that they not only respect and want to win, but they love and build more of a personal connection with. And, you know, Thomas Tuchel had that pretty much from day one at Chelsea because of who he is and how he operates. But I think back, for example, to a game against Tottenham when Tuchel was in charge and Harry Kane equalised late on and it looked like Cucurella's hair was pulled. In fact, it definitely was, and the officials missed it. And then at full time, Tuchel and Antonio Conte, then Spurs manager, walked past each other, and instead of just shaking hands, after their hands connected, neither of them let go, and it caused a sort of tug of war and a little bit of a brawl. And again, Chelsea fans remember that because it's the manager sticking up for their team. So Enzo Maresca, after Chelsea won the Club World Cup, ran onto the field. There was an issue with Gigi Donnarumma. There was a bit of a brawl after Chelsea won that trophy. And again, Maresca was right in the centre of it, playing kind of peacemaker, but again, wearing his heart on his sleeve. And this is another example. And I think that even though he now has to face a touchline ban, it will only endear him further to the Chelsea fan base.
While we're on the topic of managers, I just want to touch quite briefly on, you know, international breaks usually intensify this whole sack race idea of, this is the moment to get rid of your manager. We've seen Russell Martin get sacked from Rangers after he even needed a police escort to get away from angry fans who had blocked the team bus. Steve Bruce was sacked from Blackpool after their defeat to Wimbledon. It is not a good time to be a manager, basically. Other names that we've seen thrown around are, of course, Ruben Amorim and also Ange Postecoglou and Unai Emery as well. And that's only just to name a few. So who do you see going? And is there anyone else that we should probably keep an eye on?
Yeah, I don't think Unai Emery is under threat. Villa have turned their form around, but naturally, if there's a vacancy at a big club, we might hear one or two managers such as Unai Emery, Marco Silva, Oliver Glasner linked with the vacancy, and I think that's where the whole Ruben Amorim Sunderland game was really important. It's kind of in some ways an irrelevant stat that Ruben Amorim is the first manager to win his 50th game at Manchester United. So not 50 wins, but a win on his 50th game. But actually, no one had done that before Sir Alex Ferguson. So heading into that Sunderland game, if the curse of the 50th game had resulted in anything other than a Manchester United win, then Ruben Amorim could have been in trouble. And that's where we might have looked at some very safe and well-respected managers who could be linked with a vacancy like the job at Manchester United. Now I think the feeling is that Ruben Amorim will have until the November international break, if not longer, to continue to make progress. And the thing, of course, for Manchester United is start getting back-to-back wins or string a run of form together, and then we'll no longer be talking about the potential for Ruben Amorim to leave Manchester United. But that, of course, is still a situation to watch. Ange Postecoglou is another very interesting one, simply because if you actually take his Spurs Premier League form and that at Nottingham Forest, you're talking about 11 games in the Premier League for Spurs and Forest without a win, and in all competitions at Nottingham Forest he's gone 7 games without a win. So Evangelos Marinakis now has a huge decision to make, because we know he's not afraid to be cutthroat. Postecoglou was his choice and he was picked for his attacking brand of football that is very much risk reward, but it's not working at the moment. So now we'll have to wait and see what Marinakis decides to do during the international break. And what I can tell you is that many at Forest, such as Ross Wilson, highly regarded, or Edu, who's come in as the global head of football, yes, they'll be consulted, but they may very much be in the dark as well, because when Marinakis makes big decisions, he tends to bunker down, and sometimes they can take others at the football club by surprise. So this isn't going to be some big collaborative meeting. This might be Marinakis calling up Postecoglou, them having a heart-to-heart chat, and then Marinakis deciding. So Postecoglou is under serious pressure. We'll wait and see whether a change is made during the international break. And then, of course, Russell Martin's gone from Rangers. There's several candidates at the time of recording. It would be very interesting if they went to try and get Steven Gerrard back. There is Kevin Muscat, another name that has been discussed too. You've got Mark van Bommel, the Dutch manager, who I don't think we can call a front runner, but he was approached during the summer, and I'm told he would be interested in that role. And Danny Roll is a free agent as well. And I think Rangers were put off when he was at Sheffield Wednesday by the compensation that it would have costed to make an approach and seriously consider him over the summer. But now Roll is a free agent, so let's wait and see if that changes the dynamic. I think Rangers will want a quick appointment to find stability in the hope that they can turn their season around, and urgently, because this doesn't look like a Rangers team at the moment, and they can't afford any more bad results, because I think at the time we're recording, they're heading into the international break and they're already 11 points behind the current leaders, Hearts.
So it really is one to keep an eye on, especially over this international break. Ben, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks a lot. Always a pleasure.
Don't forget, this video is in association with our own bookies, talkSPORT Bet. So download the app or head to the website talksportbet.com for more information. 18 plus, T's and C's apply. BeGambleAware.org.